Today I'm offering these words of reflection that were written by Mary Beth de Blasio, the head of our religion department at Donovan Catholic High School and our campus minister. A few weeks before Advent began, one of the daily Mass readings was taken from the 18th chapter of the Gospel of Luke. It's the story of the blind beggar, and it's always been one of my favorites. The blind beggar is sitting at the side of the road when he hears quite a commotion. He's told that Jesus is in town. The beggar calls out to Jesus, and the crowd hushes him. But Jesus asks the crowd to bring this man forward. He looks into the blind beggar's eyes and asks, "What do you want me to do for you?" And the beggar responds, "Lord, I want to see." And Jesus restores the beggar's sight. As I meditated on that story a few weeks ago, I thought the blind beggar's prayer, "Lord, please let me see," would be a good one to focus on during this Advent in the year 2020. A wise person once told me that we don't see things the way they are. We see things the way we are. I think there is a bit of truth in that. Sometimes our own weakness, fear, and bias get in the way of us seeing the truth or what is really there. And so we live with what Broadway theaters call a partially obstructed view. It may be fine for us to buy a cheaper ticket to a Broadway show with the understanding that our view will be somehow or somewhat obstructed. But in life, a partially obstructed view can be costly. It can cost us the truth. Consider the Star of Bethlehem. The three kings looked at the star and it gave them purpose and meaning. And eventually that star totally changed the direction of their lives. But King Herod looked at that same star and he saw something completely different. He saw a threat. His fear, his ignorance, and his ego obstructed his vision. And the threat he saw was so great, he reacted with horrific violence. Perhaps it was easier for the kings to see the reality of the Star of Bethlehem because they traveled in community. I do think it is easier to see the truth of something when we have others who help to keep our sight in check. It is good to have honest companions on the journey who will tell us, "No, what you're seeing in this situation is not reality. Your brokenness, your sinfulness is blurring your vision." Our real friends tell us when we are blind to the truth, which is right in front of us. But even in community, we have to be careful about our seeing. Over the years, I've watched scores of Christmas pageants, and every year I see the innkeeper hold up a sign and say, "There is no room in the inn." And then one year, many years ago, I read a meditation that asked this question: what if the innkeeper wasn't such a bad guy? Maybe he was just stating the truth. I remember reading that and thinking, what do you mean? Of course he was rude. He turned the Holy Family away. But the Spirit nudged me and I ran to get my Bible and I found that there is no mention of an innkeeper at all. The scripture simply states that there was no room in the inn. All this time I had misjudged the innkeeper because I never questioned what I saw year after year. Maybe there was an innkeeper, and maybe he was a kindly old grandpa who watched his own grandson be born. Maybe he knew that his inn, filled with travelers who were enjoying their wine, was not a place for a young girl to give birth. Maybe he was a kindly man who knew that he kept a clean stable and that the warm breath of the animals would take the chill out of the air as Mary labored to bring the Christ child into the world. For decades, I saw this innkeeper all wrong. I misjudged him based on how he was portrayed. I followed it without question. My vision was blurred by the "this is how the story goes" mantra. Truly, this year, 2020, has challenged us to look at things differently. We have had to revision how we educate and how we celebrate. We have witnessed horrific injustice as well as the heroic commitment of our medical professionals fighting a brutal pandemic. It's important for us to really be honest with ourselves as we view and review this year. The pandemics of COVID and poverty and injustice have left some of us with fatigue and fear. Both of these color our vision. Fatigue and fear often obstruct our view. Perhaps we have become desensitized and we turn a blind eye to the suffering that is right in front of us. Or perhaps the groups we surround ourselves with, virtually or in person, do our seeing for us, and it's just easier to see things the way they see them, without questioning. I think most of us can find ourselves in one of these camps. I know I found myself there. For this reason, the blind beggar of the 18th chapter of Luke is my 2020 Advent companion. This humble beggar was persistent in his calling out for Jesus. He was courageous in asking for sight. Seeing things as they really are takes incredible courage sometimes. It calls us to walk through our fears, to lay aside our prejudices and our ego. It requires deep thought and prayer. Seeing things as they really are may call us to redirect our route as it did for the wise men. Seeing things as they really are may call us to ask forgiveness from those we have demonized or misjudged. All of this takes courage. But I do believe that if we humbly and sincerely pray, Lord, please let me see, that like the blind beggar, we will open our eyes, and maybe for the first time, we too will see the merciful gaze of Jesus looking back at us. Perhaps this is what this Advent journey is all about.